Episode 1, Bright Lights, No City. A person in their late teens, almost 20, laid relaxed on their couch, idly drawing with a drawing tablet in hand. The sweltering heat of summer forced them to wear loose-fitting shorts and a tank top, but they stubbornly wore a light jacket. Their phone pinged, causing them to look up, which was strange, because they kept it on silent. Unlocking their phone, they saw no new notifications, just a couple emails they never bothered to check. What caught their eye was an app that had downloaded itself onto their phone. Fearing they'd been hacked, they made quick work of trying to delete it, to no success. In fact, they'd accidentally opened the app instead, and were greeted with a status screen. "Hello, player. Please do not panic. The transportation will commence momentarily, and will take no time at all. 2 skills have already been chosen for you, to make starting out a little easier. Your skills are Soul Summon and Perfect Proficiency. You can find their descriptions in the menu of this app. Player name, Dawn." Before they could even try to close the app, swirls of colorful light filled their vision. The floor seemed to drop out beneath them, but they didn't feel like they were falling. Just like the app said, after a couple seconds, the sensation faded. Dawn blinked the floaters in their vision away, only to stand there in disbelief. Grains of sand brushed against their feet. Unforgiving rays of the sun shone from above. Instead of their room, Dawn was surrounded by limestone buildings and foreign people. They stood at the base of a towering staircase, leading to a palace that pierced the sky. A main pyramid stood proud in the center, with windows and hallways jutting out of it. Gardens hung from various floors and platforms, and water flowed along beautiful channels. But the grandeur of the palace held nothing to the massive glowing stone floating above it. It was both translucent and opaque at the same time, every color swirling in perfect harmony. It seemed to pulse with power, an aura of unfathomable potential within. Standing in front of the entrance, no doors, they noted absent-mindedly, were guards now alerted to their presence. They readied their spears and began descending the staircase. People started shouting, but Dawn couldn't understand their words. The language was unlike anything they'd ever heard before. A brief, dry wind brushed their dyed red hair. A robotic voice emitted from their phone. "Language decode complete." Just in time for one of the guards to stop in front of them. "State who you are, and how did you do that?" His voice was gruff, but not deep. He looked about the same age as Dawn themselves. They quickly tried to formulate an answer, as a crowd formed. They whispered to each other in tense anticipation, and more guards warily crept forward. "The Mana Stone was gifted by God King Pearlia, reacted just before you appeared." "I'll ask you again, how did you do that?" The guard's impatience grew, but he unknowingly gave Dawn the perfect gamble. "Well, naturally." Taking on an air of confidence they didn't have, Dawn twirled a lock of curly, chin-length hair. They smiled slightly, taking the now confused expressions as their chance to strike. "I was sent by Pearlia as well, so of course his gift would react to me." The guard stammered and looked to his comrades. The crowd was restless, most looking between themselves, others not believing it, and some even bowing in prayer. "You claim God King Pearlia sent you, from his throne in the sky." A guard dressed differently from the rest, likely the captain, stepped forward. She had an elaborate golden collar piece, and her spear was embroidered in gold. "That's what I said, isn't it? Unless you're telling me you lack faith in him." At Dawn's words, everyone immediately fell into silence. Half the crowd started bowing and whispered prayers. "I am a servant of the God King and his children. To diminish my faith in him is to forfeit my own life." The guard captain was quick to regain her composure, but it was clear Dawn was winning. "Who knew religion was this easy to exploit? Pearlia had sent me personally, and here you are, pointing spears at me." Dawn flicked a lock of hair they were holding, placing a hand on their hip. They were already sweating, and wondered how long their pale skin would last if they continued with this little dance. Their hand was already clammy from holding their phone. Of course, their phone! "I should contact him right now, tell him that you all didn't respect his generosity." Dawn held up their phone, the status screen of the app on full display. The guards gasped in surprise, and the captain stared in silence. "Forgive me, blessed one." The captain planted her spear on the ground and no longer spoke with authority. She kneeled on one knee, bowing her head. My duties demand I protect the palace with my life. We have shown you immense disrespect. At her example, the other guards quickly followed. Everyone around waited in bated breath at Dawn's answer. Very well. I see this was just a misunderstanding. Can we talk inside now? I believe our conversation should be held with fewer ears present, yes? The captain nodded firmly, and after standing, addressed her subordinates. I will take her to see the king and queen. Back to your posts. While Dawn wasn't looking forward to climbing the staircase, getting out of the sun was their first priority. 1 minute of agony was better than any amount of time outside. The shade was a blissful reprieve from outside. A plush carpet along the center of the hall cushioned their feet, and elegant columns held the high ceiling. Water ran along the channels in the ground, and plants were dotted about with tactical beauty. 2 thrones covered in pillows, accompanied by servants with fans and trays of food. Guards eyed Dawn with suspicion, but said nothing seeing the captain. Captain Iria, who is this? It was the king who spoke first. Light, airy fabric draped along his body, with most of his chest and arms exposed. The main fashion trend, it seemed, was to keep both the arms and midriff bare, only slight jewelry on either. The fabrics themselves, though, were bright and glittery. Tiny gems embedded into the fibers shone in the light. I greet my king. She was sent to us by God King Pirolier. The captain's words echoed throughout the chamber, and all of the bustle slammed to a halt. The queen stood, quickly but still with elegance, and walked over. I have never seen skin so pale before. The queen reached out, trying to touch Dawn's face, but they instinctively leaned away. Taking the hint, she smiled sweetly. Forgive me. God King Pirolier watches us from his throne in the sky, so it is an honor to have someone sent directly from his halls here. Dawn just hummed in response. Let us host a feast for our blessed guest, the king announced from his throne. The queen smiled at him, although it seemed to be lined in malice. Tell us, blessed one, what is the name Pirolier bestowed you with? My name is... Their first instinct was to reply with their actual name, but no sound came out. Despite trying to form the letters in their mouth, there was no avail. Thinking quickly, they came up with an excuse. Forgive me. Humans cannot pronounce it. You can call me Dawn instead. It is an honor, Dawn. The king smiled languidly, and the phrase was echoed by everyone else present. At least they weren't immediately killed, Dawn supposed. The aged boy had taken a nap with the intent of wanting to settle their stomach after such a large meal, and after drifting off to sleep, awoke to their phone demanding his attention. He reached for the device blindly, wondering who could be messaging him so intently. His chatting app had no new notifications, but he clicked on it anyway, or at least he thought he did. Instead, a status window for an app he didn't remember installing appeared. Hello, player. Please do not panic. The transportation will commence momentarily, and will take no time at all. 2 skills have already been chosen for you to make starting out a little easier. Your skills are Black Hole and Lore Edit. You can find their descriptions in the menu of this app. Player name, Molly. If finding out his phone had installed an app by itself wasn't a rude awakening, the sudden light show was. The floor disappeared from beneath him, and his stomach made very loud protests. He felt his body compress, but barely a few seconds later, it ended. The first thing Molly noticed was that everything was massive. The second thing was that someone was screaming. Words he didn't understand rang in his ears. Everything was so loud, too. He reached up to cover them, only to see his hands were no longer human. Were those mole paws? Language decode complete. That dirt dweller just appeared out of thin air. Officer, it's got black magic or something. Arrest it! A woman was yelling at 2 men in uniform, both of which were carrying a rifle. One sighed, and the other looked at Molly in disgust. Let's just take it to the station. Its owner will show up eventually. The policeman marched up to Molly, who suddenly became very aware of just how short he was. His whiskers twitched, but Molly remained calm. You're coming with us. Don't try anything funny. Molly just nodded and followed them. His human-sized clothes dragged on the ground as they walked. Wooden buildings lined the streets, and the people they passed looked like they just stepped out of Victorian painting. Suits, fancy dresses, top hats, many of them wearing metal accessories like cogs or some sort of machinery. Smoke spewed into the sky from factories in the distance. The policeman stopped in front of what he assumed was a police station. Inside, a woman behind the front desk spoke to a man with even fancier clothes than the people outside. Dirty blonde hair seemed to shine in the glow of the gas lamps. The man turned around to see who had walked through the door, his eyes landing on Molly. "Wow, a mole person!" The man immediately crouched in front of him, his eyes glittering with mischief. "You know, most of you guys are chained up, so it's refreshing to see a mole person walking around free. Say, what did you even—" The man continues talking, his words becoming faster and more excited. The policemen look at each other and try to talk to the man, but he ignored them. Who are you exactly?" Molly interrupted the man, and he blinked in surprise. He quickly cleared his throat before proudly putting his hand on his chest. "Why, I'm none other than the heir to the Lavenhart family, Rodrigo Lavenhart." There was a moment of pause, where the man was clearly expecting something. "Am I supposed to be surprised?" Molly asked, not unkindly. This caused Rodrigo to burst into laughter. The receptionist looked at the policeman in distress. "Not every day you see a mole person with that kind of spunk. I like you. Say, what did you bring him here for?" "He was causing a disturbance, Your Highness," one of the policemen answered. Rodrigo waved him aside. "Surely some maiden found him to be unlike her slaves. You may go." The policeman tried to protest, but stopped quickly. "Now then, how about we continue our conversation outside?" Following the human, Molly cursed his far shorter legs. He had to nearly sprint to keep up with what had to be a 6-foot man. Rodrigo pointed out a variety of shops, asking if there was anywhere the mole person wanted to go, before stopping himself and saying new clothes were a far better option. Molly watched as the prince called over the maids, who had been waiting by a carriage, an actual, authentic carriage. Rodrigo had no issues stepping inside, but Molly found the task to have some difficulty. Rodrigo once again asked where Molly had come from. "I don't actually know. I don't know where I am, either." "What, were you sheltered as a slave?" "Well, it doesn't particularly matter now, The man found the whole situation to be amusing, but Molly was off-put by how casually he mentioned Molly had originally been a slave multiple times by now. Just what was this world? "You're in the capital of the Erdgessen Empire, known for its manastone mines, which my family controls, and conquest." Molly turned information around in his brain. Soon enough, the carriage stopped outside of a boutique. "Could you tailor an outfit for my friend here?" Rodrigo spoke to the employee that greeted him kindly. She glanced around and had a look of confusion on her face. "What friend, Your Highness?" "My friend right there." The man gestured to Molly, and the woman laughed slightly. "Quite the joke, Your Highness. A dirt dweller is your friend." She continued laughing, and Molly could see Rodrigo's teeth clench. "I assure you, it is no joke." The woman immediately stopped laughing and side-eyed Molly. "Very well, follow me." She briskly walked to the back, grabbing spare fabric. The woman barely measured him, mostly eyeballing it. 20 minutes later, Molly walked out with clothes that seemed to fit more a servant than anything else. That, and it was clearly very hastily sewn. Rodrigo paid for it nonetheless, and Molly saw something out of the corner of his eye. It was an old, worn wizard hat. The mole merchant wasted no time in grabbing it and asking if it was for sale. "Sure, 20 gold coins." Rodrigo waved to the maid without even blinking, and Molly ran up to the man. "Thank you very much. You didn't have to do that. Tell you what, you probably don't have anywhere to go after running away from your owners, right? How about getting a job at my mansion?" Rodrigo smirked, and the maid sighed. "Yes, please. You really are too kind." The carriage ride took almost an hour, all the while Rodrigo told the mole person about the Lavenhart family. They had a complete monopoly on all the manastone mines. While there were 3 ducal families, the Lavenhart family was the only one with enough power to rival the imperial family. Upon arriving, Mole had to take in the lush gardens and the massive mansion. Floor-to-ceiling windows, maids strolling about, and almost no sign of the cramped city they were just in. Rodrigo walked inside unfazed while Molly struggled to follow. A woman who looked similar to Rodrigo, likely his sister, ran up to them. "Brother, you wouldn't believe what—" She stopped as soon as she saw the mole person. "Brother, why is there a dirt dweller in my house?" Rodrigo looked utterly ecstatic by his sister's reaction. "This is my friend, sister. That's awfully rude." "Your friend? Brother, look at it! Who knows what diseases it's carrying?" The girl's screams attracted the attention of a man in his mid-30s. Meanwhile, Molly's phone pinged. "Level up. Your stats have increased based on how you gained experience points. Current level, 2. Please choose an active or a passive." Molly picked passive, tuning out the woman's outrage at being ignored. Stage 1 regeneration. Decreases the time it takes to recover from fatal injuries. Natural charm. The user has an aura that smooths over any negative interactions. Initial prejudice lessens. Thinking the second one was the obvious choice, Molly chose natural charm, and it appeared under his other 2 skills. The sister immediately stopped yelling. "Ellen, why are you shouting?" A man rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Father, there's a dirt dweller here! A dirt dweller!" The sister, Ellen, turned to the Duke and pleaded to him. Rodrigo just watched, tapping his foot on the ground. "Father, I brought you a new employee." The two turned away from Ellen, all his attention on his son. Mole people are known for their ability to distinguish real from fake gems, right? The prince was clearly alluding to something, and the Duke hummed in agreement. "Well, you'd be working here, we'd give you a place to stay, and would feed you. Depending on how well you do, you'll be compensated accordingly." "Father!" Ellen protested, but a raised hand from the Duke silenced her. "I would like to work here, thank you very much. A very interesting day, ending with a very interesting job."